Power. A concept that can be meaningless to some and empowering to others. But for me, it's what I seek. Not in a normal sense, though. Rather, as a dragon in Minecraft. For around 25 days, I will play as a dragon in Minecraft. Day 1, I took some thought on which dragon type I'd choose, yet one called my name. I created my dragon and we get straight into combat. I was young, and I knew I wasn't ready for this fight, so I left for the village for food. I did it and dealt with the boss in the village and got bullied by an iron golem, thinking I was stronger, yet I was far from that. Then I later visited the nearby structure, seeing stronger foes, yet I took the lazy way out and turned the inside into an oven. Days 2 to 3. I went to the west, to another structure that had withered skeletons, so burning the place was useless, and I still did, and clearing the whole place was pretty easy, and would head west once more to a massive structure. The locals there did seem pretty dumb, but in reality, there was still a good amount of loot there and some pretty decent items to take, and I did use my flames to take care of a few. There was a prison area of sorts that had shoes that apparently crashed my game. Yeah, I don't know. And it had Gordon Freeman's crowbar. In the prison area, I saw that I had a hunter's debuff, meaning all villagers would be inherently afraid of me, and so I left the villagers that were in those cages behind, and I went west to a village and leveled a few skills, ending off the day. Day 4, I soared through the skies hoping for a home, and going north, I would spot a perfect land or castle and went to take it as my own, and found things that were suitable for my needs and went to borrow from the nearby village for items and decor for my new home. I did some moving things around, setting up a food area and a storage room. I cleared the top room of the castle and would borrow some more items from the village to make a more fitting bedroom. Day 5, it was raining, so I was pretty useless out in the open as my flames would not work. But I did level my skills enough so the rain wouldn't cause harm to me. I started a small mining area for later and would discover emotes. Then back at the castle, some creeper was bothering me again, and I whacked him to oblivion with the crowbar, ending my night in my room. Days 6 to 7. I felt strong. A castle to my name, stronger abilities, and stronger weapons, blasting music far too loud. And then, if this was hardcore, I would honestly just quit YouTube here. That was genuinely embarrassing. I'd also find another large fortress and deal with a very intelligent NPCs the only way I know how. The loot room in this fortress was kind of more disappointing. Either way, I'd find my first dragon hunter outpost and clear out and take their interesting coin and other riches. For my proof of strength, I burned around the fortress, leaving my mark on the land. I later find a pillager outpost and did what I do, clearing it and spawning another hunter outpost and doing exactly what they do to me to them, leaving them to burn and gliding to a village nearby. Day 8, I needed to do something bigger. I decided to set flame to an entire village to show the land around my power. I ventured once more, finding a home that had funny NPCs and would clear the house regardless and set the area around ablaze. I glided above the clouds, seeing beyond the horizon, then heading back home to set up my treasure room, finding out I could actually sleep on the gold. Day 9, I cleaned up the treasure room a bit more, not doing much else other than just burning more food for me, and experimenting with more dragon doors and finding a good place to place them, ending off the night sleeping on the gold and taking some time to rest. Days 10 to 9, I soared through the skies towards another hunter outpost, dealing with them the way I know best, and taking what is better off mine. I soared higher, heading towards a structure I saw off the map and another portal. The structure was interesting, and I ended up setting a flame to it, dealing with the evokers, which was the worst so far. There was quite a lot of loot and some armor upgrades for me, but by far, the amount of Vex just made it incredibly annoying, and I was still too weak to properly fight back. But they all burned, leaving me alone, and the structure cleared. And I did fix the nether portal and lit it with my flames. Before I went to a nearby home and left my stuff there after clearing it. Once in the nether, I cleared out a safer space, mainly to just prevent gas from blowing up my portal, and during this, I grew from a newborn to young. A rightful occasion for my natural habitat. Day 12 did come at some point while I was exploring the nether for one thing. For later, I had in mind it would be quite a while until I found something worthwhile and found a bastion and a pigman boss that was pretty lame. Then I saw it, felt its presence, and I knew in order to claim the nether I must deal with it when I was ready. Then I found another bastion and bullied them and took their things. I definitely didn't get lost for a bit, but did get to find a use for my dragon key and would unlock the treasure from my ancestors. Pretty sure they are just throwing up on me. After a sad amount of time, I found the portal and left for now. Day 13, I soared the skies to a pillager outpost and with no hesitation to give them a nice heater. There was also an oddly hard zombie boss that was scary for a second until I got stuck doing that. I later went to a new village to burn it down and take their things, mainly because they had good food to burn. Day 14, I watched the sunrise as if there wasn't an overcooked frozen pizza behind me. Oh my, sorry, that won't happen again. I flew to another outpost on the map, burning it because I can, leaving a sign for the friends who might return later. I went to another hunter outpost. Maybe at this point I need a better naming system. Either way, it doesn't really matter. I burned them all the same. I flew not too far, seeing a cold outpost. I don't know, they remind me of Draugrs from Skyrim, so it's a Skyrim place. Shush. They had some decent loot and a new type of material, but it kind of sucked. So, day 15. I honestly hate this. You know what? I really tried to do a cool thing in the sky and feel cool, but there was a corrupted chunk in that direction. I'm over it. After making my goal to avoid the bad chunk, I went to a new castle and overpowered them with, you know. I did also find this very deep cave thinking I should come back later. I didn't. The village nearby unfortunately wasn't very flammable, so I had less interest in it and just burned the trees around and would take in the sunset. Days 16 to 17, I flew back home and man, that view of my castle gets better each time. But I also made some room on my main floor for another portal. Either way, I did have more than enough of materials to make an enchanting room and planned one for my main room as well, in the castle. I head back to sleep to finish it later since I did run out of materials at the time, and I was out of wood, which was one of the most normal things I think this entire run has had, and would gather wood. Yeah, I don't like it either. It took a bit to find a good fit for the bookshelves, but I made it work, and it was a bit cramped, and it did work. Then I'd hoped for some decent armor or leggings, and they were pretty good. Day 18 started with one of my favorite things ever, soaring through the sky, and went to the woodland mansion I saw on the map in the distance. My goal was not to burn the entire mansion down, but I couldn't help it, and the flames would spread very quickly. I did a weird thing, then stole some obsidian and left a small, perfect little lava pool for me to go downstairs, and there was this boss down there that actually almost took me down, but I still won. The mansion burned very quickly, and I almost thought about moving in there since it felt better for me now. There was a cave by the mansion that had a shrieker, but it was easy to assume nothing would spawn, until I'm really dumb. Day 19, I slept hoping I could ignore the major embarrassment I just displayed, and went back desperately trying to fight the warden, but failed again, trying to burn its face and hope for the best. After a while, I did just give up and tried to get all my loot, but Gordon Freeman's crowbar didn't survive, unfortunately. Not too far away, there was a new structure on the map, but the place was wonky, and they had a sea guardian and some guy who wanted to hug. I thought it was a sea guardian, but it was actually a really weird boss that had wither attacks, and the rest got stuck behind doors, so a hunter outpost was close, and I took all their things and went to the nearby village to sleep. Day 20, I saw a pretty nice looking structure on the map and tried my best not to burn the place down, even if the mobs were really tempting to. Which they were, and it was until I saw that mushroom boss and I just had to burn it. There was no better way. I found a really weird close by hunter, you know what, I will say animal hunter and dragon hunter, because I'm confused and you will probably are as well. Either way, I took their stuff and burnt most of it because it's what I do. And they had a painting which was pretty cool to take as well, and I saw another dragon hunter base and dealt with them quickly as well. Then after some flying, I saw an animal hunter home and gave him the wrong instructions for dino nuggets. Day 21, I flew to the village that was a bit north, and it wasn't as flammable, but some of the houses were, so I burned them and would deal with one of the iron golems right as it started to rain, making my flames again useless. So I left the village and I spotted a new animal hunter home, burning it at least to the extent I could, but it didn't really do nothing, and I just took their food. I would spot a normal pillager home clearing it out as the rain came. However, that home would matter a little bit more later on. I headed west, finding a new village and a new type of structure that had whatever was going on. I had no clue what did that. Day 22, the rain was done, so my first instinct was to burn the village, but it wasn't very flammable, so I just burned the streets instead since it's somewhat similar. I went further west to the colder lands, seeing a village with a dragon hunter outpost, but first dealing with the boring hunters and burning their homes. The village was pretty interesting, but it wasn't worth staying too long, and I saw this very large structure when flying in, not completely expecting much. However, it was quite the interesting dungeon to go through. Right before the sunrise, I had a true high glide to my castle and still love that view I get when I fly in. Day 23, I questioned my own mortality. Yes, I do this often. And it was after I placed my painting last, I'll just shut up. I wanted to be young forever. I looked for what I needed to craft a star heart, which would forever halt my growth, so I could fit in my castle and not be extremely slow and old. I had everything I needed and now prevented my mortality, allowing me to be forever young. Now, for the celebration, I gathered some lava buckets from my castle for one of my ideas I had. Before I went back, I made my castle portal just a bit safer so nothing would walk in or a ghast would attack me. I placed lava in spots around the castle to get the feel I wanted, and damn, that fly-in is cool. Almost before sunrise, I looked at what I needed for the dragon beacon, which I thought would make the animals not afraid, and it's not exactly that. Either way, it was weird, and I placed it on top of the castle, facing towards the moon, and would activate it. Day 24 began my plan, at least to see where the end portal was, since I chose the Ender Dragon as my end goal, and solidify my power in this realm. Little did I know, one of the pillager homes not too far south was exactly where the dungeon was. Now, a feature with the map I have is layer checking, so I could check the dungeon was in fact there. Even if I didn't have the map, there was a boss that was being highlighted the entire time, so it was pretty clear something was down there. The boss was a witch, which was pretty fitting considering there was only 2 eyes of Ender, so I would need to head back to the nether to make some more. Day 25 did change at some point while I was exploring the dungeon, and didn't get stuck and needed to use the map to get out. Once I was back above ground, I wanted to try to write with fire where the portal was. Yeah, it didn't work out well. Sunset came and I flew back to my castle and bullied some random endermen and lit up the area so it would stop some spawning. I did try to enchant a bit, but I kept getting terrible enchantments and did get looting too, which was more than enough of what I needed for a sword. Day 26, I was close to another fortress and a warp forest, which was pretty ideal and would not take too long with looting too. Either way, I got what I needed and would have a very dramatic glide to the end portal, but saw I was missing chest armor, which was not very smart, and I would head back to my castle making a diamond chest that got an okay enchantment. I wanted to wander a little bit more north to get some more XP, and finding a lighthouse with a stick, it seemed, I don't know. Either way, I cleared 2 other structures on my way back to the castle. Day 27 came on my way back since it was already near sunrise, and again would try to get a better sword, but kept getting utter garbage. Yet I did remember I could do another normal thing in Minecraft, which was just mining quartz for levels. I claimed the beacon's power one last time, and aiming myself exactly towards the end portal. The start was a bit confusing in the end, but I just flew back, and then would come my destiny. My rightful proof of power. My greed. My lust for power. All shall be worthless. So it is. The dragon is slain. My power in this realm will be considered beyond those that could try to fight me. It was no longer an ambition. It was my fate. Is what I would say if I was done. My fight. It's not over. Not yet. Day 28, upon my return to the overworld, I checked once more if I was ready for the final battle. Not the dragon again. Not the wither. but a being that rules a land that should rightfully be mine and mine alone. An abomination. I roared, showing my strength, and then the fight begins. The nether war machine was gone. Another realm was conquered as my own. As I noticed, the Ender Dragon had left one terror behind. However, that was another issue for a different tale. I flew back home and would place the first of many trophies of those who I have taken down. I watched the sunrise in a realm that was far from being all mine, yet the adversaries I hated most were now gone. Part of me feels a rush of power, and another feels empty of what is truly left, when all has been defeated. With all my enemies gone, towns destroyed, my power increased, trees burned, forests ruined, gods destroyed, what is left? What have I become when I have overpowered those I fear? What is a dragon when his enemies are no more? What is a fighter? What is a warrior without one fight against?